There is a silent, pervasive exhaustion that haunts the modern soul. It is not merely the physical tiredness of a long day at work, nor the mental fatigue of processing too much information. It is a deeper, more existential weariness, the exhaustion of a person who is constantly at war with themselves. We live in the golden age of self-improvement. Our bookshelves are lined with manuals on how to be more productive, how to be happier, how to be mindful, how to conquer anxiety, and how to become the best version of ourselves. We treat our own minds like unruly gardens that must be constantly weeded, pruned, and forced into submission. We wake up every morning with a subtle, underlying agenda. Today, I will fix myself. But this very intention, this desperate drive to improve, to change, to sanitize our own interior landscape is the hidden engine of our distress. We are running on a treadmill of transformation, sweating and straining, only to find that the scenery never changes. Now let us explore the profound wisdom found not in adding more, but in letting go. To understand why the project of self-correction is doomed to fail, and indeed why it often exacerbates the very problems it seeks to solve, we must first examine the architecture of this internal conflict. We must look at the I that is trying to improve the me. The prevailing sensation of civilized existence is that of a split personality. We do not feel like one integrated flow of experience. We feel like two. There is the I, the observer, the controller, the voice of reason, the spiritual seeker, the one who has good intentions. And then there is the me, or sometimes it, the body, the emotions, the wayward thoughts, the lazy impulses, the anxious reactions. The I looks down at the me with a mixture of concern, frustration, and sometimes outright disgust. The I says, I must control my temper, or I must stop worrying, or I must be more present. This structure seems perfectly logical to us because it is baked into our language and our culture. We speak of mastering ourselves or conquering our fears. But let us pause and ask a dangerous question. Who is this I that is going to do the mastering? And who is the me that is going to be mastered? If you look closely with the piercing gaze of a scientist examining a specimen, you will find that this split is a hallucination. There is no separate captain standing on the bridge of your consciousness, distinct from the ship. The I who wants to improve is made of the same stuff as the me who needs improving. The desire to stop being anxious is, in itself, a form of anxiety. The urge to force the mind to be quiet is a form of mental noise. We are caught in a vicious circle, or what in electronics is called a positive feedback loop. Imagine a sound system where the microphone picks up the sound from the speakers and feeds it back into the amplifier. The sound loops around and around, amplifying itself instantly into a piercing, unbearable screech. This is exactly what happens in the human mind when we try to fix our own state of being. Let's take the example of anxiety. You feel a flutter of nervousness in your stomach. Perhaps you have a presentation to give or a difficult conversation to hold. This is a natural biological reaction, a simple vibration of energy. But then the I, the self-image, steps in. It says, I should not be nervous. Nervousness is a sign of weakness. I need to be calm. I need to be spiritual and centered. So you start to worry about the fact that you are worried. You become anxious about your anxiety. Now you have two layers of disturbance, the original feeling and the resistance to that feeling. The resistance creates tension. The tension makes the anxiety worse. The I sees the anxiety getting worse and panics. It's not working. I need to try harder to be calm. So you clamp down tighter, which only increases the internal pressure. The screech in the speakers gets louder. You are now trapped in a hall of mirrors, fighting a reflection that mimics your every move. You are like a man trying to smooth out rough water with a flat iron. The very action of smoothing it creates more disturbance. This is the great myth of self-correction, the belief that the ego can surgically remove its own defects. It is the belief that you can lift yourself up by your own bootstraps, but you cannot. You are the organism that is behaving. You are the stream of thought and feeling. You cannot stand outside of yourself to fix yourself, any more than a knife can cut itself or a fire can burn itself. Yet we persist. We persist because we are addicted to the concept of time. We believe that the solution to our suffering lies in the future. I am not okay now, we think, but if I meditate for 10 years, if I go to therapy, if I read the right books, then in the future, I will be okay. This projection of a better self into the future is the ultimate distraction from reality. It allows us to avoid facing the truth of what we are right now. We treat the present moment as a waiting room, a temporary inconvenience that we must endure until we arrive at the destination of fixed me. But life is not a journey toward a destination. It is a musical expression. The point of a dance is not to get to a specific spot on the floor. The point is the dancing. The point of a song is not to get to the final chord. The point is the singing. When we turn our lives into a project of self-improvement, we stop dancing. We stiffen up. We are so focused on placing our feet in the correct positions that we lose the rhythm entirely. Consider the Protestant work ethic that has infiltrated our spiritual and psychological lives. We believe that nothing good comes without struggle. If it doesn't hurt, it doesn't count. So we treat meditation as a grim duty, a mental gym workout where we lift heavy weights of concentration to build, quote, spiritual muscles. We grit our teeth and try to force the mind into silence. But a forced silence is not silence. It is just repressed noise. It is like a classroom of children who are sitting still because the teacher is holding a cane. The moment the teacher leaves, chaos will erupt. True silence, true peace, is organic. It comes not from suppression, but from understanding. The tragedy of the self-correction myth is that it turns us into objects of our own aggression. We become our own taskmasters. We carry a whip in our own minds, constantly lashing ourselves for not being kind enough, smart enough, or calm enough. We dissect our past actions, agonizing over mistakes, replaying conversations, wishing we could edit the tape. This constant self-monitoring creates a profound sense of self-consciousness. We lose our natural grace. Have you ever watched a cat? A cat does not try to be a good cat. A cat does not wake up in the morning and write in a journal, "Today I will be more feline. I will stalk the mouse with greater mindfulness." The cat simply is. It moves with total integrity, total unity. When it sits completely. When it jumps completely. It has no split between I and me. It has no image of itself to live up to. Human beings, on the other hand, are clumsy. We stumble over our own feet because we are watching our feet. We stutter because we are listening to our own voices to make sure we sound intelligent. This feedback of self-consciousness is the friction that wears us down. It is the exhausting futility we spoke of. We are spending 90% of our energy managing our own image, adjusting our masks, propping up the scaffolding of a self that doesn't really exist. And what happens when we fail? Because we will fail. The bad self always slips through. We lose our temper. We eat the cake we promised not to eat. We procrastinate. When this happens, the I feels guilty. Oh, I am terrible. I have no discipline. So we resolve to be even stricter next time. We build higher walls, install better alarms, and the cycle of repression and explosion continues, year after year. We must also consider the role of society in this hallucination. From the moment we are born, we are told that we are not enough. Education, advertising, and religion often conspire to implant a sense of original sin or inadequacy. We are told that we are raw material that needs to be processed into a useful commodity. We are graded, ranked, and compared. This conditioning runs deep. It convinces us that our natural state is wild, dangerous, and unacceptable. We believe that if we let go of the steering wheel, even for a moment, we will crash. We believe that if we stop forcing ourselves to be good, we will become monsters. But is this true? Is the human organism really a chaotic beast that needs a dictator in the brain to keep it in line? Or is that very dictatorship the cause of the chaos? When you try to calm your mind, you are essentially creating a conflict between two parts of your mind. You are using thought to fight thought. It is like trying to wash off blood with blood. The more you scrub, the messier it gets. The very instrument you are using to solve the problem, the judgmental, controlling ego, is the problem. The thief is dressing up as the policeman, running around the house pretending to look for the burglar, knocking over furniture and creating a panic, all to avoid being caught. The I that wants to be enlightened, or peaceful, or better, is a fraud. It is a phantom. It is a concept of yourself that you have confused with your actual self. And a concept cannot do anything. A map cannot get wet. Only the territory can get wet. Your idea of you cannot change your behavior. Only the living organism can change. But the living organism changes through growth, through insight, through organic adaptation, not through the tyranny of a concept. So we stand here in the middle of our library of self-help books, holding our list of New Year's resolutions, and we feel the crushing weight of the impossible task. We are trying to bite our own teeth. We are trying to see our own eyes without a mirror. We are trying to lift ourselves off the ground by pulling on our own belt. The exhaustion you feel is the exhaustion of Sisyphus, pushing the boulder up the hill only to watch it roll back down over and over again. It is a terrifying realization in a way. If I cannot fix me, then what is left? If effort doesn't work, if trying doesn't work, if discipline doesn't work, are we doomed? Are we stuck with our anxieties and our flaws forever? This brings us to the edge of the precipice. The mind recoils from this logic. It screams, "But I must do something. I can't just sit here and be a mess." This scream is the ego fighting for its life. The ego survives by having a job to do, and its favorite job is fixing things. If you tell the ego that there is nothing to fix, or that it is incapable of fixing anything, it feels unemployed. It feels a wisdom of insecurity. But stay with this frustration. Do not run away from it. This dead end, this cul-de-sac where all your efforts have failed, is the most important place you can be. It is the beginning of sanity. It is the moment when the fly in the bottle realizes that banging its head against the glass is not the way out. We have spent our lives adding more strategies, more techniques, more knowledge, more control. We have assumed that the answer to, "How do I stop overthinking?" is a new kind of thought. We have assumed that the answer to, "How do I find peace?" is a new kind of war against noise. We have been adding fuel to the fire, thinking it was water. The myth of self-correction is the great tragedy of the modern age. It keeps us locked in the future, forever chasing a carrot on a stick that is taped to our own forehead. It keeps us divided against ourselves, hiding our shadows, fearful of our own depths. It turns life into a problem to be solved, rather than a reality to be experienced. As we conclude this first leg of our journey, let us simply acknowledge the heaviness of the armor we have been wearing. Let us acknowledge the fatigue of the sentry who has been standing guard at the gates of the mind for decades, terrified that if he blinks, the enemy will get in. But what if the sentry is the enemy? And what if there is no gate? We are not broken machines. We are not sins waiting to be forgiven. We are not projects waiting to be completed. We are something far more mysterious, far more fluid, and far more whole than our fractured language allows us to see. But to find that wholeness, we must first stop trying to manufacture it. We must stop the war. We have arrived at the heart of the dilemma. We have acknowledged the exhaustion of the sentry, the weary part of us that stands guard over our own behavior. But now we must ask the detective's question. Who is this sentry? Who is this good self that is so intent on fixing the bad self? This is where the plot thickens. This is where we uncover the deception that keeps the wheel of suffering turning. Imagine a house where a burglary has taken place. The police arrive and a helpful man in the crowd steps forward. He is eager, articulate, and full of theories about who the criminal might be. He directs the officers to search the basement, to interview the neighbors, to look for fingerprints. He is so helpful, in fact, that he becomes the leader of the investigation. But what the police do not realize is that this helpful man is the burglar. He is leading the investigation precisely to ensure that he is never caught. He is running around creating noise and confusion, pointing fingers at shadows, all to distract attention from the fact that the stolen goods are in his own pocket. This is exactly what happens in the human psyche. The I that wants to be virtuous, the I that wants to get rid of the ego, the I that practices meditation to become holy, this I is the ego. It is the thief dressed as the policeman. We have a bad self, the one who is lazy, anxious, lustful, or angry. And we have a good self, the one who has read the moral rule books, the one who wants to be respectable and admired. The good self looks at the bad self and says, "You are a mess. I need to clean you up." So the good self starts a program of reform. It imposes discipline. It forces the bad self to sit still, to eat salad, to smile when it wants to scream. But why does the good self do this? Is it out of pure altruism? Is it out of a genuine love for reality? No. The good self does this because it wants to survive. It wants to be safe. It wants to be congratulated. It is driven by the exact same desire for security and continuity that drives the bad self. The bad self seeks comfort in cake or distraction. The good self seeks comfort in the feeling of righteousness. They are two sides of the same coin. They are both forms of grasping. This is why self-improvement so often feels hollow. We are trying to polish a brick to make it into a mirror. The entity doing the polishing is made of the same material as the brick. You cannot use the ego to get rid of the ego. You cannot use desire to stop desiring. When you understand this, you see the vicious circle of control in all its terrifying absurdity. Let's look at the mechanics of this circle. The human mind is a feedback system. It monitors itself. This is usually a wonderful thing. If you are walking and you trip, your nervous system instantly detects the error and corrects your balance. You don't have to think about it, it happens organically. This is a negative feedback loop. It restores equilibrium. But the ego introduces a positive feedback loop, a loop that amplifies the error. This happens because the ego separates itself from the action. It doesn't just be unbalanced. It thinks about being unbalanced. It judges the unbalance. Let's say you are trying to fall asleep. You are tired. But then a thought arises. I must sleep now, or I will be tired tomorrow. This thought creates a tiny spike of adrenaline, a signal of danger. Now you are a little bit more awake. The controller in your mind notices this and says, "Oh no, I'm waking up. I need to try harder to sleep." So you lie still, you squeeze your eyes shut, you count sheep with aggressive determination. You are trying to relax. But trying to relax is a contradiction in terms. You cannot force a muscle to let go. You can only allow it to let go. The effort to relax creates tension. The tension wakes you up further. The controller panics. It's 2 a.m. I am failing at sleeping. The panic releases more adrenaline. Now you are wide awake, staring at the ceiling, trapped in a feedback loop of your own making. You are awake because you are trying to sleep. This is the law of reversed effort. As the philosopher Aldous Huxley pointed out, the harder we try with the conscious will to do something that can only be done spontaneously, the further we get from the goal. You cannot try to be charming. If you try, you become fake. You cannot try to be happy. If you try, you become miserable about your lack of happiness. You cannot try to be natural. The very command, act naturally, creates the most awkward behavior imaginable. The trial of this section is to confront the utter powerlessness of the controller. We have spent our lives believing that if we just grip the steering wheel tighter, we will be safe. But we are discovering that the steering wheel is not connected to the wheels. Or worse, it is connected in reverse. Think of a time when your hands were trembling, perhaps from cold, or fear, or too much coffee. If you try to hold your hands perfectly still by sheer force of will, what happens? They shake more violently. The tension in the muscles amplifies the tremor. To stop the shaking, you have to let the hands go limp. You have to give up the control. But the ego is terrified of giving up control. It operates on the assumption that the organism is stupid. It believes that if it doesn't constantly supervise the breath, the heart, the emotions, and the thoughts, the whole system will collapse into chaos. It treats the me, the biological reality, like a delinquent child that must be watched 24/7. This lack of trust is the root of our anxiety. We do not trust our own nature. We feel that we are a thin veneer of civilization painted over a boiling cauldron of beastly impulses. So the sentry paces back and forth, exhausted, terrified that if he takes a nap, the beast will escape. And here is the cruelest joke of all. The sentry is the beast. The frantic energy of the controller is the chaos he fears. When we try to fix our anxiety, we treat anxiety as an object, a thing inside us that needs to be excised like a tumor. We say, "I have anxiety," as if we possess a faulty toaster. But you do not have anxiety. You are anxious. Anxiety is not a thing, it is a process. It is the way you are vibrating right now. When the I tries to stop the me from vibrating, it is like a wave in the ocean trying to stop the water from moving. The wave is the movement of the water. If the water stops moving, the wave disappears. The ego is a movement of the mind. If the mind becomes truly still, the ego disappears. This is why the ego can never really achieve peace, because peace is the end of the ego. So the thief runs in circles. He runs from the basement to the attic, shouting orders, organizing the search party, creating a whirlwind of activity. We must find the culprit. We must fix this mess. And all the while, he is picking his own pocket. This creates a state of infinite regress, a hall of mirrors effect. I am worried. I am worried that I am worried. I am angry that I am worried that I am worried. I am trying to stop being angry that I am worried. Where does it end? It doesn't end. It spirals down into the abyss of mental paralysis. This is what we call overthinking. Overthinking is simply the mind trying to think about itself thinking. It is the eye trying to see itself. It is the tongue trying to taste itself. It is physically impossible, but we drive ourselves mad trying to do it. We want to stand outside ourselves and watch. We want to be the director of the movie and the actor in the movie at the same time. But you cannot be. You are the movie. The struggle you are feeling, the frustration of, "Why can't I just change?" is the friction of this impossibility. You are fighting the laws of physics. You are trying to lift a bucket while standing inside it. And this leads us to the darkest part of the trial. The realization that you are not just helpless to fix the world, you are helpless to fix yourself. This sounds like bad news. It sounds like despair. If I cannot fix myself, then am I doomed to be this way forever? Am I trapped with this broken mind? The ego screams, "No, try harder. Buy a different book. Try a new meditation technique. Go on a retreat." The thief begs you not to look at him. He wants you to keep looking for the burglar out there. He wants you to keep the game of self-improvement going, because as long as the game continues, he has a role to play. He gets to be the hero of the struggle. But let us be ruthless. Let us look the thief in the eye. The reason you cannot fix yourself is that there is nothing to fix and no one to do the fixing. The breakage is an illusion caused by the attempt to fix it. It is like a pool of mud. If you want the water to be clear, what should you do? Should you jump into the pool and try to scoop the mud out with your hands? Should you try to smooth the water flat? No. The more you stir, the muddier it gets. You are the disturbance. The good self that is trying to clear the mind is the stick stirring the mud. This is the precipice. We stand here, hands dirty, exhausted, realizing that our best efforts have only made things worse. We realize that our discipline was just aggression in disguise. We realize that our spiritual practice was just a way of trying to grab the universe by the throat. We are stuck. We are paralyzed. We are like a mosquito trying to bite an iron bull. And this is the moment of grace. Because when you truly see that you cannot do it, when you truly see that the I is a fiction and the control is a myth, you stop. Not because you should stop, that would be just more control, but because you see the absurdity of continuing. You stop in the same way you stop trying to walk through a wall once you realize it is solid stone. You don't need willpower to stop walking into a wall. You just need to see the wall. In this section, we are not offering a solution. We are offering a collapse. We are allowing the scaffolding of the self-improvement project to crash down. Let it crash. Let the dust rise. Let the thief be exposed, standing there with the stolen goods, looking sheepish. The struggle is not a battle between good and evil. The struggle is a misunderstanding. It is a case of mistaken identity. We have identified with the voice in our head that says, I should be different. We have ignored the reality of what is. We are suffering from the hallucination that we are separate from our own experience. We think we have thoughts, but we are the thoughts. We think we feel feelings, but we are the feelings. If you are the feeling, you cannot control the feeling. Can fire burn fire? Can water wet water? No, you can only be it. The trial is to accept this powerlessness, to surrender the throne, to admit that the little I, the pilot, the captain, the sentry, never really had control in the first place. The plane was flying on autopilot the whole time. The sun rose without your permission. Your heart beat without your supervision. Your thoughts appeared without your invitation. You have been sitting in the passenger seat with a plastic toy steering wheel, pretending to drive, screaming at the road to straighten out. And now we are going to put the toy wheel down. We are going to stop pretending. We are going to face the terrifying, wonderful truth that we are not in charge of the universe, and we are not in charge of ourselves. And so we arrive at the resolution. But be careful, this is not a resolution you can achieve. You cannot grab it. You cannot strive for it. The moment you strive for it, you are back in the Hall of Mirrors, and the thief is back in uniform. The resolution comes when the striving burns itself out. It comes when you realize that the I who is trying to change is the same thing as the me who needs changing. And in that realization, you stop. You don't stop because you are forcing yourself to stop. You stop because you see that moving is futile. You stop because you finally understand that you cannot smooth the rough water with a flat iron. This stopping is not the same as giving up in despair. It is not lethargy. It is the birth of a new kind of intelligence. The ancient Taoists called it Wu Wei, which is often translated as non-action or effortless action. It does not mean doing nothing. It means not forcing. It means acting in accordance with the grain of nature rather than against it. Think of the muddy pool we mentioned earlier. This is perhaps the most perfect image for the human mind. When the mind is agitated, when thoughts are swirling and emotions are clouded, our instinct is to do something. We want to plunge our hands in and push the mud down. We want to clear the water by force. But as we have seen, this only stirs the sediment. The power of non-interference is the wisdom to stand on the bank and wait. It is the understanding that the water has its own intelligence. It knows how to become clear. Gravity is working on the mud. If you leave it alone, if you stop disturbing it with your help, the mud will settle all by itself and the water will become transparent. You do not have to make the water clear. You just have to stop stirring it. This requires a tremendous act of trust. You have to trust that your mind, your organism, knows how to balance itself. And why shouldn't it? Your body knows how to heal a cut without you supervising the process. It knows how to digest your dinner without you issuing commands to your stomach. It knows how to grow your hair. You don't sit there all day saying, "Push, follicle, push." It happens. The psychological life is no different. If you are anxious, the anxiety is a wave of energy. If you leave it alone, if you don't judge it, don't fear it, and don't try to push it away, it will rise, crest, and dissolve. It is the nature of energy to move. It is only when we block it, when we say, "No, I must not feel this," that we trap the energy and turn it into a chronic condition. We spoke of the law of reversed effort. This is the key that unlocks the cage. When you are drowning, if you panic and thrash about, trying to climb out of the water, you will sink. But if you relax, if you fill your lungs and lean back, the water itself holds you up. The very element that threatened to kill you becomes your support. The same is true of the mind. When you stop fighting your own insecurity, when you embrace the trembling, you find that there is a buoyancy in life that you never noticed before. You realize that you don't have to hold yourself together. The universe holds you together. So what does this look like in practice? It looks like a shift from controller to witness. But we must be careful with words. We don't mean a witness who is standing apart, judging. We mean a simple, non-clinging awareness. The great Indian philosopher Krishnamurti called it choiceless awareness. You simply notice what is happening. You notice the anxiety. You notice the thought, "I hate this anxiety." You notice the thought, "I wish I were better." You notice the tightness in the chest. You don't try to change it. You don't try to keep it. You just watch it, the way you would watch clouds drifting across the sky. When you do this, something magical happens. Because you are not feeding the loop with new reaction, the loop begins to slow down. The thief realizes no one is chasing him, so he stops running. The screech in the speakers fades because you have moved the microphone away from the amplifier. You find that you are not the anxiety, you are the space in which the anxiety is happening. And that space is vast. That space is untouched by the noise. It is the silence that allows the sound to be. This is the only true self-improvement, but it is a paradox. You improve only when you stop trying to improve. You change only when you accept what you are completely. As the humanistic psychologist Carl Rogers said, "The curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change." Why? Because the energy that was being wasted on the civil war inside your head is suddenly liberated. The energy you used to repress your shadow is now available for living. You become spontaneous. You become graceful. You become like the cat. You begin to function from your center rather than from the anxious periphery of your ego. You act not because you should, but because the situation demands it. When you are hungry, you eat. When you are tired, you sleep. When there is work to be done, you work. As the Zen masters say, when sitting, just sit. When walking, just walk. Above all, don't wobble. The wobble is the hesitation of the ego, the second guessing, the "am I doing this right?" When you drop the project of self-correction, the wobble disappears. You flow. This is not a state of perfection. You will still get angry. You will still feel fear. You will still make mistakes. But you will no longer be at war with these things. You will no longer be afraid of fear. You will no longer be guilty about your guilt. You will be a human being, participating fully in the messy, wiggly, beautiful dance of existence. And in that acceptance, you find the peace at the controller was searching for but could never find. You find it not by climbing a mountain, but by letting go of the rock face and realizing you can fly. Now, let us explore the profound wisdom found not in adding more, but in letting go. The journey we have taken is not a journey of distance, but a journey of recognition. We have seen that the I who seeks is the shadow of the seeker. We have seen that the struggle to fix ourselves is the very knot that binds us. And we have seen that by simply letting the mud settle, by trusting the organic intelligence of our own being, we return to the clarity that was always there. You are not a problem to be solved. You are the universe experiencing itself. Be the experience.